now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 16th, 2022 Denver Regional Council of Governments Board of Directors meeting. I'm Ashley Stolzman, the chair of the board, and I call this meeting to order. First, we'll have a roll call and introduction of new members and alternates this evening. And I was having a little bit of trouble at the start of the meeting finding our new member list. So I will ask Melinda Stevens if she could introduce the new board members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, you'll have to give me a second as well, but I think
Sorry about that.
Pretty quick. No, you are absolutely fine. Let me pull that up really fast. Okay. It's coming up now. All right. So for our new members are Chuck Harmon from the city of Idaho Springs. She was introduced last meeting, but I would like to introduce her again. We have Lisa Smith, who is the new member for the city of Arvada. And then we have Jeslyn Shah-Rezai of the city of Lakewood. Hopefully I got that right, Jeslyn. And then we have a new alternate for the city of Lakewood, which is Rich Olver. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you very much, Melinda. And with that, we will do a roll call of members. For folks that are just tuning in, don't worry, we'll get everybody sorted out and pulled over to the right area. It'll just take a moment, and if we have any people that we miss in the roll call, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get it all sorted at the end. So with that, I'll turn it over to Melinda Stevens for a roll call.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. All right, Allison Coombs of Aurora. Mike Kaufman of Aurora.
Oh, sorry, I'm here. This is Allison.
Oh, nope, that's okay. Thank you so much, Allison. Ari Harrison of Erie. Sarah Laughlin of Erie. Chuck Harmon of Idaho Springs. Claire Levy of Boulder County.
Present.
Colleen Whitlow of Meade.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Craig Hurst of Commerce City.
Present.
David Spellman of Blackhawk. Deborah Mulvey of Castle Pines.
Present.
Don Cognac of Firestone. David Whelan of Firestone. George Lance of Greenwood Village. Dave Kerber of Greenwood Village. George Teal of Douglas County. Abe Layden of Douglas County. Jamie Jeffrey of Lochbuie.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Jan Plowski of Brighton. Adam Cushing of Brighton.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jason Gray of Castle Rock. Tim Dietz of Castle Rock. Jeff Baker of Arapahoe County.
Here.
Jeslyn Shah-Rezai of Lakewood.
Here, and well done, Melinda.
Thank you. Welcome. All right. Jessica Sandgren of Thornton.
I'm here.
Jim Turini of Dacono. Catherine Whitman of Dacono. Joan Peck of Longmont.
Present.
John Dyack of Parker.
Here.
Josie Cockrell of Foxfield. Lisa Jones of Foxfield. Julie Duran Mullica of Northglen. Joyce Downing of Northglen. Cara Tanucci of Central City. Jeremy Fay of Central City. Kevin Flynn of Denver.
Here.
Christopher Larson of Nederland. Larry Vidum of Bennett. Linda Montoya of Federal Heights.
I'm here.
Lisa Smith of Arvada.
Hello, hello. Present.
Thank you. Lynette Kelsey of Georgetown.
Here.
Margot Ramsden of Bomar.
I'm here.
Thank you. Neil Shaw of Superior. Tim Howard of Superior, Nicholas Angelo of Lyons, Holly Rogan of Lyons, Nicholas Williams of Denver,
Here.
Nicole Spear of Boulder, Othaniel Sierra of Inglewood, Steve Ward of Inglewood, Paul Hazeman of Goldman,
Here.
Paul Sutton of Morrison, Sean Foray of Morrison, Rachel Binkley of Glendale, Ryan Toucher of Glendale, Randy Wheel of Cherry Hills Village, Russell Stewart of Cherry Hills Village, Randy Wheelock of Clear Creek County,
Here.
Roy Palmer of Columbine Valley, Sally Daigle of Sheridan.
I'm here.
Awesome. Sarah Numella of Westminster, Bruce Baker of Westminster, Stephanie Walton of Lafayette, Brian Wong of Lafayette, Stephen Barr of Littleton, Kyle Schlachter of Littleton, Steve O'Dorisio of Adams County, Lynn Baca of Adams County, Steve Conklin of Edgewater.
I'm here. Good evening.
Thank you. Tammy Maurer of Centennial,
Present.
Tracy Kraft Tharp of Jefferson County, Andy Kerr of Jefferson County, Webb Sill of Gilpin County, William Lindstedt of Broomfield,
I'm here.
Winshaw of Lone Tree. Here. All right. With that, we do have a quorum, Madam Chair, and I will hand it back to you for anyone that we did miss.
Thank you very much. And so if you'll just raise your hand if we missed you, and we'll get you taken care of. Jamie Jeffrey, Stephanie Walton, Bud Starker, Josie Cockrell, and Rebecca White are all here. George Teal and Bill Van Meter's also here. And Lynn Baca is here with us. And Sally Chafee from CDOT. Thank you all very much. And if we missed anybody else, we will get it all sorted out. Rachel Binkley is also here. And Lisa Smith. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. If we missed anybody else, we will sort it out with the chat and the panelist after the meeting. So thank you very, very much for that. That takes us to approval of our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Director Starker.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Jessica.
Thank you. Jessica Sandgren seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The agenda is approved. And so that takes us, boy, I'm just having a hard time keeping I'll put it over here and I won't lose it now. That takes us to the report of the chair. And so I will turn it over to a report from Performance and Engagement Committee.
Thank you very much. Good evening. We met earlier this month. That would be February 2nd. And we had a couple of items on the agenda. We took action on award nominations for a variety of awards coming up for the annual awards program. We also talked about just some of the issues around the planning for the event, which we hope everyone attends. We also talked about the 2022 board retreat, which we'll be getting more information on. We talked about options, locations, and topics, those type of things. I do want to just briefly mention I have served on performance and engagement for a number of years. And this past year, it was a great honor chairing the committee. I want to thank all the committee members for making it just a great year as chair of performance and engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Conklin. Next, we'll have a report from the Finance and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, Finance and Budget Committee authorized the Executive Director to negotiate and execute a contract with Bright Systems for approximately $360,000 with a one-year term that supports, for data work that supports the AAA. We authorize the executive director to amend an existing contract for $70,000 with Milliman Actuarial Services to a total not to exceed $81,000 to conduct additional analysis on data from the Accountable Health Communities model. And I wanted to thank both the committee and DRCOG staff for their fine work on the Finance and Budget Committee this year. It's been my pleasure to serve. And Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Director Shaw. And that takes us to the report from the Executive Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much, and good evening, everybody. I'm just going to note a couple items that Director Conklin mentioned that we've been having discussions with the Performance and Engagement Committee. The first is the board retreat. I mentioned this last month, and we do have a date now, which is April 2nd. Did I say September?
Yes, you said September and April. It was pretty fun.
I meant to say Saturday, April 2nd. And so we've been working with the Performance and Engagement Committee, and we're finalizing, and we will be finalizing the agenda at the March 2nd P&E meeting. But we're really hoping that to use this as an opportunity for our board members to re-engage. It's been a long time, been a long 2 years for sure. We are anticipating that this will be an in-person event. And I think the whole theme of the event will be re-engagement. So we're excited about it. I will tell you that because of the uncertainty of COVID, we are planning on hosting the event at the DRCOG offices. So please save the date. We will be sending out some information, save the date notice by the end of this week, hopefully. On the award celebration, again, just a quick reminder that as Director Conklin mentioned, the event, please mark your calendars for the evening of April 27th. And we'll be hosting that in-person event at Empower Field at Mile High. And this is, of course, a great opportunity for all of us to celebrate the projects, plans, and people in our region that are helping us meet our MetroVision objectives. And we'd love for everybody to join us. Actually, we hope and encourage and expect everybody to be at that event. Board directors are invited to attend the event at no charge, and registration will be open soon. We're just working out some final details with our software so we can open that up. Would also like to ask and encourage our member local governments to purchase tables, sponsoring the event by purchasing a table, which is $900, and it seats 10. So we would strongly encourage you. And again, if you have any leads on sponsorships, please send them my way or Steve Erickson's way. We'll be happy to track those down. You know, these events are not cheap, and we want to make sure to try to utilize all the sponsorship opportunities that we can. So if you have any further questions, please, of course, always reach out to myself or Steve Erickson. A little update on the regional transportation plan and the upcoming tip calls. And I know the sub-regional forums are gearing up for the upcoming tip calls. And as you are, I'd just like to remind you all that the board recently adopted a valuable regional complete streets toolkit. Staff also developed DRCOG's first ever GIS story map to accompany that. But more specifically, what we'd like for you to consider is to utilize that toolkit to assist you all in developing multimodal projects for the TIP that obviously help implement the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan projects and priorities. So it's easy to find. You can just get on the DRCOG homepage and just scroll down to news and announcements, and there's a little blurb there that talks about the toolkit and the story map. And just click on that and it'll take you to the appropriate links. Winter Bike to Work Day, which was organized and hosted by DRCOG Way to Go team last Friday. And those that got on the call a little early were able to see some of the photos that were taken by staff associated with that event. It's obviously, it's not as large as our summer event, right? But this is really, we were impressed. We got 1,700 pledges and 48 breakfast stations were established throughout the region. So I really want to thank everybody that were involved for the success of that event. And we'll be back hosting our summer Bike to Work Day event in June. That's after 2 years of pivots due to the pandemic. So we're excited to get back and really promote that event for truly what it is, which is a great opportunity to experience biking in a safe and welcoming environment. Last but not least, Madam Chair, we have a birthday boy in the house tonight, Ron Papsdorf. It's a birthday on February 16th, 29 years old and holding is what I've been told. So congrats on meeting that milestone, Ron. That's my report, Madam Chair.
Happy birthday to Ron, and we should all clap. That's wonderful. What a great way to spend your birthday. Thank you, Executive Director Rex. And so that takes us to our public comment period tonight. Up to 45 minutes is now allocated for public comment. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. If there are additional requests for the public to address the board, time will be allocated at the end of the meeting to complete the public comment. I would request that there are no public comment for issues which a prior public hearing's been held before the board. Thank you. Any members of the public care to comment? Go ahead and raise your hand. Good evening, Randall. You're first up. Randall Loeb. Sorry about that. I guess I need to unmute you here. Huh. There we go. Can you unmute on your end, Randall?
I did it.
There we go.
As always, it's a pleasure to address the regional leadership of this area. I'm basically 2 blocks away from the main office and have been for over a year since I stepped down from a position running a community neighborhood organization, being the caretaker of it. I'm now involved with Bayard Enterprises, and I've been doing that for as long as the pandemic has been going on. I live on Social Security, and I'm in a what's called a non-congregate shelter called A-Loft at the moment, and it concerns me as one ages, as it was recorded in a newspaper article and on the news. What we do with our elder members of our community. I just passed 71. Maybe it's not that old to some folks, but it certainly feels differently for me. And I ride a bicycle every day, and even in terrible weather, I rode my bicycle to work today. And I really am concerned that there are more and more people without the means to actually take care of themselves. And I've been quoted on this event, and I know that for the Denver Regional Council of Governments and COGS in general, this is one of your primary areas of interest. The safety and the possibilities of older people living in safety for the rest of their lives. I live as simply as possible, but my goal would be to help other people to understand the problems that are associated with a person who's single, who does not have the resources in order to be in a place and is actually in a sort of a no person's land between being able to be self-sufficient and having the sense that perhaps you're going to lose everything at one point and have to be in a nursing home or hospice or whatever. And I hope that you can understand my concern, because I'm sure many of you have the same issues or know someone who does. I've spoken to several groups throughout the area regarding some of these matters. And I just want to always make it present and point out that we all matter, and how our community lives is a significant issue. Thank you for your time. I see my time has elapsed, and you take care.
Thank you, Randall. Next, we have Danny Katz.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Danny Katz. I'm the Executive Director of COPER, the Colorado Public Interest Research Group. If you're unfamiliar with us, we're a statewide advocacy group. We speak up for a healthier and safer Colorado, where everyone's freer to pursue their own individual well-being as well as the public good. I'm here today to offer a general comment that we are calling on DRCOG and really all local governments, RTD, CDOT, and anyone to go big on transit in the next 2 years. We have a very important window to be able to tackle the climate change pollution that's coming from our transportation system, as well as the Vision Zero goals and the ozone pollution goals. And the window is an unprecedented opportunity because of the funding that we have coming down from the federal government, local, state. And so going big on transit really means looking at two things in my mind. One is the recent CDOT greenhouse gas rule that came out did a scenario plan of how we would hit the goals. And one of the numbers that stuck out to me was we need to increase transit ridership by 70% in the next decade. At the same time, I sit on the RTD Reimagine committee, and we were briefed on the system optimization plan that they've been developing. And it looks like for the next 4 to 6 years, we could be somewhere around 85% of what ridership was pre-pandemic levels. And so we have to figure out a way to close that gap. Like I said, whether it's for climate, for our Vision Zero goals, for our air pollution goals, over the next month or two, COPERG will be making this our top priority, thinking through how can we identify new projects, new strategies to bring forward, to raise up, and recognizing that this is not something that DRCOG can do alone. This is not something that RTD can do alone. This is not something that local governments can do alone, but we're all going to need to work together and truly prioritize transit in a way that I don't think we've done in quite some time. Capital will be important. I mean, being able to build, dedicated bus lanes will be helpful, but it really, I think in my mind, comes down to operating in service. And there's a huge gap there. We've got to figure out how to fill it. We've got to be as creative and strategic as we possibly can. And we'll be working over the next couple of months, and we'll likely come back with some suggestions and recommendations, but hoping everybody can really see the next year or two as just really our window to go big on transit in our region in order to tackle some of our biggest problems and hit those big goals. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and look forward to working with anyone here on the call.
Thank you, Danny. Next, we have Matt Frommer.
All right, can you hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you. Good evening, members of the DRCOG board, and happy birthday, Ron Papsdorf. My name is Matt Frommer. I'm a Denver resident, and I work on clean transportation policy with the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, or SWEEP. I'm here tonight to urge the DRCOG board to support House Bill 221138, which would create new programs and tax credits for employers that offer a wider variety of transportation options to their employees. The new programs will give Coloradans better access to clean and affordable mobility options and help to reduce congestion, improve air quality, and address climate change. Colorado is facing serious challenges on climate and air quality. The Denver metro area has the 8th highest ozone pollution in the US and the 2nd highest outside California. Passenger vehicles are the largest source. Transportation is also the largest source of greenhouse gas pollution. Solving these challenges will require a combination of vehicle electrification and mode shifting toward cleaner and more efficient travel options like transit, biking, walking, and telework. This bill is not about taking away anyone's car keys, but about giving people access to safe, reliable, and affordable transportation options. House Bill 1138 represents a compromise with the business community. It requires the lowest hanging fruit, simple and low-cost strategies like employee surveys, commuting information like transit maps, bicycle maps, and the activation of the federal pre-tax commuter benefit for transit and van pool passes. Most of these materials and templates are readily available through DRCOG's Way to Go platform. The second part of the bill provides financial incentives for businesses that voluntarily choose to offer alternative mobility options to their employees, including things like flex work schedules, transit passes, electric vehicle charging, bicycle facilities, and parking cash outs. Lastly, the bill would increase funding for our TMAs and TMOs to expand their employer TDM programs. The bill aligns with many of DRCOG's Metro Vision performance measures, including goals to reduce the percentage of commuters who drive alone to work, lower daily vehicle miles traveled, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve job to transit accessibility, particularly for low-income residents. The program will also help DRCOG comply with CDOT's new greenhouse gas planning rule. These programs have been in place for decades in other cities and states. For example, Washington State adopted a similar policy in 1991, and the program has reduced commuter vehicle miles traveled by 6% for employers in the program. In Seattle, the program contributed to a 20% reduction in single occupancy vehicle commute trips. As we emerge from the pandemic, we have a rare opportunity to shape travel habits and behavior. And this is the perfect time to roll out a comprehensive and meaningful commute program in partnership with the largest employers in our state. And so I urge the DRCOG board to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jenny Gnang. Jenny, you might be muted. There we go.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. My name is Jenny Gang, and I am the Transportation Manager for Conservation Colorado. I am also here to urge you to support House Bill 22-1138, reduce employee single occupancy vehicle trips, which Matt did an excellent job of describing. This bill creates a strong and effective program for employee trip reduction that prioritizes equity for essential and low-income workers. I don't have to tell you about pollution on the Front Range. You've all seen the devastating impacts, record ozone alert days when it was unsafe to go outside, the high incidences of asthma and other respiratory diseases, especially in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color located near highways, and the tragic Marshall Fire that ended 2021 with a reminder of how important it is that we act now and with every tool in our toolbox. Reducing single occupancy vehicle trips is one of the most important and complicated ways to combat pollution from transportation. House Bill 1138 provides tax incentives for employers that provide their employees a range of effective options for how to get to work. And importantly, it makes sure that those benefits are offered to all essential workers and employees making under $40,000 a year. And it sets the stage for all large employers and their employees to explore commuting in a new way by requiring annual commuter surveys, pre-tax commuter benefits, and parking cash out options. Passing this bill is an essential step towards rectifying our air quality, reaching our state climate goals, and building a thriving transportation system that works for the Denver metro region and beyond. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide comment, and I hope you will all vote to support House Bill 1138.
Thank you. Next, we have Audrey DeBarros.
Thank you, Chair Stoltzman and members of the Board of Directors. I appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment tonight to voice our support for House Bill 1138. I am the Executive Director of Commuting Solutions, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization and one of the 8 transportation management organizations in the Denver region, representing the Northwest Metro region in Boulder and Broomfield counties. And we are a very proud partner in the DRCOG Way to Go program, along with our other sister TMOs, working together to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality. And again, I'm here to support House Bill 1138 and to ask for your support this evening. Matt Frommer just did a wonderful job of summarizing, the context in which this bill is very important to achieve climate change, multimodal traffic congestion, and air quality goals, all of which align with the DRCOG Metro Vision Plan. But speaking as a TDM practitioner, a transportation demand management practitioner who has worked in the field for over 20 years, we are really not able to keep pace in the Denver region to shift mode share through voluntary involvement from businesses. We have been doing that for decades, and we still have the issues that we have at hand. Due to the spread out nature of our land use in many parts of the region and limited multimodal systems in place, our ability to demonstrate success and inspire that commute behavior change is oftentimes limited to those employers who are located in more urban environments, who are more sustainably oriented, or where the employer might have limited parking supply. And we really fear that unless the Denver region leads out with a bill such as this to mandate participation in services that we are offering, we will not achieve the climate change goals that our governor has set forth for the Denver region and the state of Colorado. So we really want to see TDM as a more meaningful strategy. And the Way to Go partnership stands ready to help businesses and make it a turnkey, easy program for them to implement. And I think that Steve Erickson from DRCOG's staff will tell you all about how we have readied ourselves through the My Way to Go platform. So we respectfully ask for your approval this evening. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I also thank you for your service on the DRCOG Board of Directors. And I too would like to wish Ron Papsdorf a very, very happy birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. And that takes us through our public comment period tonight. So that takes us to our consent agenda. Could I please get a motion from a member to approve the consent agenda? We have Director Shaw.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second, Director Starker?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion of the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. The motion carries. And that takes us to our first action item this evening, which is election of officers. You'll find it as attachment F in the packet. And I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Rex to turn it over to the nominating committee. Executive Director Rex.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. And first of all, I would like to thank the nominating committee for their work. They've had to meet a few times lately, as you'll see on your agenda today. So I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the nominating committee, Director John Dyack.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Rex. I also would like to thank the nominating committee, specifically Director Daigle, Director Mullica, Director Peck, Director Sangren, Director Williams for their time, their service, and their flexibility. We've as Executive Director Rex indicated, we've met a number of times and to go through the next 3 items. So let's get to it. The first item is the nominating committee recommendations election for the board officers. We wish to thank everybody who applied. It was a very tough decision. We thoroughly enjoyed receiving everybody's application or request for consideration. We reviewed it, and very tough decisions. Our recommendation would be to promote Director Conklin to Vice Chair, promote Director Shaw to Secretary, and to also nominate Director Baker for the vacant position of Treasurer. With that, Madam Chair, I will be available for any questions if the board deems it appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll just take a moment on this one and we'll see if we have any questions from board members. And I'll just pause here for a minute because, you know, in normal times we would all be together, so we would all know each other better and see faces and could see and congratulate each other, maybe step out and get a cup of coffee and a cookie in the lobby together. So I just want to pause long enough to make sure if people have questions about looking through their screen, who are these people? Have I met them before? Or want to check in your packet under attachment F to just be following along on what we're looking at. Any questions from members? All right, not seeing any. If you want to tell us the next report, Director Dyack.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The next item would be to appoint members of the Finance and Budget and Performance and Engagement Committees. This is something that we collectively encourage everyone to participate into, either Finance and Budget or Performance Engagement. It is very fundamental to the operations of DRCOG. With all of the applications, we considered all, and we were able to accommodate all of the applications for both Finance and Budget and Performance and Engagement. And again, I will be available for any questions if the board deems it appropriate.
Thank you very much, Director Dyke. Any questions from board members on that slate from the nominating committee? Seeing none, if you'll give us your final report. Thank you, Director Dyke.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The next and the last one is Front Range Passenger Rail. This is a rather new item. It is a new item for the nominating committee to consider. Very regionally significant and significant interest. And we wish we had more than just 4 seats so we could place additional DRCOG members on this. The board, I'm sorry, the nominating committee had some significant discussions and some challenges as to how we approach this. But in the end, our recommendation is to recommend the following candidates: Director Mullica, Director Peck, Director Mulvey, and former Director Chris Nevitt. Now a City and County of Denver transit-oriented development manager. Additionally, the nominating committee felt strongly that we should provide a letter of support for Boulder County Commissioner Claire Levy to be an appointee, a governor appointee, again, if desired. So with that, I would like to turn it back to you, Madam Chair, and thank you again to everybody. I had great conversations with those who were selected. And I had some very enjoyable conversations and some very tough conversations with those who weren't. So again, thank you all, and I appreciate your interest, and keep on applying. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Were there any questions from folks on the Front Range Passenger Rail board? Thank you, Director Levy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I did want to just address the note here. I appreciate that that the nominating committee recommends that the DRCOG board provide a letter of support for me. However, I am not at all certain that I actually will apply for that position. The reason being that that the Northwest MCC got together and agreed to support Devin Schaff from City and County of Broomfield for that position, and I wouldn't want to be in conflict with the position of the Northwest MCC. So I do appreciate that vote of support. However, I have not decided whether I actually will seek a governor's appointment.
Thank you, Director Levy. Any other questions or comments? All right, so let's go back up if we can. Thank you very much, whoever's controlling the screen right now. And so there's a motion proposed. So the first motion that's proposed is on the election of board officers for 2022. Is there a member who'd like to make a motion? Director Teal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move to elect board officers for 2022.
Is there a second? Director Peck?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. The motion carries. And I will just pause for a moment and ask Director Flynn if you'd like to make comments as the incoming chair. Congratulations, Chairman Flynn.
Thank you, Chair Stolzman. Just a few things. Just let me take a minute here to say a few things that have been on my mind lately. And one of them is that I seem to recall it was back in the early 80s when I was a journalist at the Rocky Mountain News, and I was covering civic issues and issues of governance, that I attended my first DRCOG board meeting at the old Diamond Hill office. And if I could have fast forwarded almost 40 years and seen myself here, I never would have believed it. I was always on the other side reporting on this. But I'll tell you one thing that my journalism career taught me, and that is the power of collaboration and of listening to every side and listening intently and honestly and authentically in the spirit of collaboration and trying to reach the best possible outcomes for everyone in this region, which is such a diverse region. The second thing I wanted to say is I wanted to congratulate my colleagues, particularly the new board member, Jeff Baker. I've gotten to know here on the board. Welcome him to the team. Look forward to working together. I also wanted to congratulate Director Wynne Shaw and Steve Conklin on their elevation up the ladder. And lastly, Chair Stolzman, I want to thank you for your very intentional and deliberate and very well-run leadership this year. This has been a very difficult year, being in the second year of COVID and being in remote meetings, but more particularly the last 2 months for you in particular, and for all of our sister communities up in Boulder County, Superior, Louisville, and the areas of Boulder County that were so devastated. I still marvel at the task that faces you all going forward. I want you to know that my heart continues to go out to you, and I'm sure I can speak for, I hope I can speak for everyone here, that all of our hearts go out to you. But not only that, more importantly, our resources, our time and our effort also are at your disposal. To the extent that we can lend assistance, staff-wise, resource-wise, please call on us. There, but for the grace of God and the winds and where the fire started that day, any one of us could be here. So I pledge that I will continue to work with you and your sister and the sister communities up there, Superior, Louisville, Boulder County, in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Flynn. And I'll just let folks know, Director Flynn will take over chairing at the very next meeting. So you'll have to put up with me for the rest of today, and I'll just take a moment to make a few comments. So I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve the region as the chair of the Denver Regional Council of Governments. Just like Ron is spending his 29th birthday with us here tonight, many of us probably recall nights that we spent, that we were down in Denver or on the computer in the other room when our families were in the other room. And it really is a valuable use of our time to come together in this way. While Ron is here tonight on his birthday, I spent my 10th wedding anniversary with all of you, but don't worry, I'm still married. It's okay. And the reason it's important is that we do really important work together. And the way we're able to get all that important work done is because DRCOG staff really are the top-notch staff in the region. They're incredibly professional. When other people see the work that they're doing, they ask how it all gets done with such a small team. These are the best of the best. If you haven't met everybody on DRCOG staff, do take the time to. If you have a problem in your town and you need help, reach out to DRCOG staff because they probably have a good idea on how to connect you with resources. And just a quick shout out to Connie Garcia, who really helped me tremendously when I started on DRCOG, and I miss her very much. So I just want to say that. I'm really sorry to everyone for having to have the virtual meetings the last year, and I'm excited for getting back in person. One of the things that's really, really great about DRCOG is the relationships that you build and being able to count on. So when I hear Director Flynn say he's there for me, I really know that that's true, and I have felt that support. When I first got on, I was very nervous, and I kind of looked to who people were talking to and comfortable with, and I started sitting next to Ron Rakowski and copying off his notes basically. But in this Zoom environment, we don't have a chance to do that. So please go to the board retreat, please talk to each other, and let me tell you about some of the kinds of things you'll learn. I learned from Rachel Binkley how much I miss Celebrity Sports Center when she did her awesome community presentation. Sally Daigle was kind enough to give me some of her very own eggs. If you haven't had any of Sally's eggs, you're missing out. They're way better than anything you get at the store. I now know what a police judge is because of Lynette. When I was at the award ceremony a few years ago, I was lucky enough to meet some of John Diak's colleagues, and they were nice enough to send me screenshots of the nice things John's mom says on Facebook about him, which is fantastic. I learned how Commissioner Teal met his wife at the board retreat. I learned what POF stands for in radio from Steve. We have members who own restaurants, who help au pairs, who are lawyers, nurses, veterans. There's even one member on the board of directors who's never tasted coffee, and another who's allergic to pumpkin. So I just would encourage you all to get to know each other to that level, and we can getting back in person. And what we can do when we know each other that well is we can really focus on the things that bring us together, because there's so much more that brings us together than divides us with our differences. And by doing that, we can continue to work on things like our Metro vision and commit to addressing the most pressing challenges in the region. We can continue to do things like reorganize our tip process so that people don't have to worry about horse trading, and that people know they're getting a fair share and good projects are getting funded. And we can continue to increase our services that we're offering for senior citizens and helping people just have better lives throughout the region. So I just really encourage everybody to continue working together like you have been. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity that I've had to be the chair. Executive Director Rex.
Wow, thank you very much. Very nice comments. I listen, this is always a bittersweet moment for me. I've been very lucky through my years here at DRCOG to have the opportunity to work with some tremendous board chairs, and no one better than you, Ashley. I mean, I swear you're fabulous, so responsive. I think we've developed quite a very good relationship over the last year. We work very intimately over a lot of different topics, and it's been a difficult time, of course, during COVID and the obviously the events that you're experiencing up in Boulder County right now. But I just truly, on behalf of staff, I wanted to thank you so very, very much for all your work and effort, what you have done and what you will continue to do in collaborative spirit for this region. I mean, listen, facilitating multiple viewpoints, that's a real skill. And that's why I think DRCOG is such a special place. I mean, you know, I've had done a lot of orientations recently with a lot of new board members, and there's a reason we've been around since 1955, the third oldest councils of governments in the country, right? Because we just have that collaborative spirit, whatever it is, it seems to work here. And it's in large part because of people like yourself. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Executive Director Rex. Chairman Flynn.
Thank you, Ashley. Just as a point of personal privilege, many of you at the past couple of awards dinners that were in person met my wife, Harriet. She wanted to give me a congratulatory kiss on my election, if that's permissible.
That is perfectly permissible.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair. That's fantastic.
We've been looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so that takes us to our next slate from the nominating committee, which is the slate of members for the Performance and Engagement Committee and the Finance Committee. If there is a member who could make a motion, Director Dackel.
Me? Yes, I will make a motion.
Thank you very much. So Director Dale moves to appoint the members of the Finance and Budget Committee and Performance Engagement Committee as proposed. Is there a second? Director Starker.
I second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion of the slate? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. The motion carries. And that takes us to our next recommendation from the nominating committee, which is the slate of candidates to serve on the Front Range Passenger Rail District. Is there a motion from the floor? Director Teal?
Madam Chair, if it pleases the board, I'd like to make a motion to approve the DRCOG nominating committee's recommended candidates to represent DRCOG on the Front Range Passenger Rail District Board.
Thank you, Director Teal. Director Lindstedt, do you want to second that?
Yep, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion from members? Director Kelsey.
I just want to point out that I will not be casting a vote because Georgetown is in Clear Creek County and therefore excluded from the MPO area. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Director Kelsey, for your attention to detail. And so I'll ask for abstentions on this one. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. And we'll recognize Director Kelsey on that for not voting on that one. Thank you all very much. And that takes us through that agenda topic. And that brings us to the next matter this evening, which is the discussion of amending FY 2022 to FY 2023 Unified Planning Work Program. I'll turn it over to Josh Schwenk, our Assistant Planner in Transportation and Planning and Operations. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm hoping you're seeing the board memo on your screen now.
We are.
All right, perfect. So just as a refresher for those of you that have been on the board, or as a introduction for those of you that might be new, our Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, is a document that covers the transportation planning activities conducted in our region over a 2-year period. This is the required product which DRCOG develops in our role as the federally designated Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, for the Denver region, and therefore its conditions. So our current UPWP covers federal fiscal years 2022 and 23, and was adopted by our Board of Directors in July last year. Recently, several changes have been made at both the state and federal levels, and so we're proposing amending our UPWP to bring it into alignment with the new regulatory landscape. So first, at the state level, we have SB 260, as well as our new greenhouse gas rule. So we've ensured that tasks in the UPWP cover the required GHG modeling work, as well as added some opportunities to prioritize reducing carbon emissions. Next, at the federal level, the big change would be our new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. You'll sometimes hear the administration call this the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or BIL, BIL. This was signed into law last November, replacing the FAST Act. So it includes several provisions. Among these are a set of transportation planning factors. These are topics that have to be considered by MPOs as part of our planning process. Mostly the IIJA carried these directly forward from the FAST Act, but they did add the word housing into planning factor 5. So MPOs must now consider strategies that promote consistency between transportation improvements and housing. So as is the case with most of the provisions in this new law, we're still waiting on some additional federal guidance on what specifically is required. But in the meantime, we have added a task to the UPWP to consult with housing agencies in order to incorporate housing into our transportation planning process, just so that we can begin those discussions and start to shape what this might look like here in our region. Some other major tasks added related to the IIJA include working with the state to develop a carbon reduction strategy, identifying and prioritizing potential projects for some of the new federal grant opportunities, and reviewing and potentially updating the critical urban freight corridors in our region. Also, in December of last year, the U.S. Department of Transportation released a set of 8 new planning emphasis areas. These align MPO activities with national goals and priorities. So staff is actually already engaged in a lot of activities around these emphasis areas, so not a lot of changes were needed, but we have added some additional coordination tasks in order to meet the intent of emphasis area 5, strategic highway network and U.S. Department of Defense coordination, and planning emphasis area 6, federal land management agency coordination. Finally, we've also updated the financial tables at the end of the document just to reflect the new revenues anticipated to be available through the IIJA that can then cover these additional work tasks that are being added to the document. So with that, happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I do have a proposed motion for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members or discussion? Director Levy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. If you attended the Regional Transportation Commission, you'll be prepared for my question, which is, I think it's great that we have explicit direction to incorporate housing into this metropolitan planning process, but I really feel that we're going to have to do some work to flesh this out and understand exactly what that means and what we're trying to achieve, and does that bring a dimension to this analysis that is different from what we're doing now? Do we are we going to use different tools, additional consultations, bring in additional partners, because it's I think we've all talked, those of us who have been involved in land use planning for years have talked about the connection between transportation and land use, It's so obvious, it almost goes without saying, but then really understanding what we're trying to accomplish by incorporating that into it. Are we trying to have more efficient land use patterns? Are we trying to optimize use of our transportation system? Are we trying to increase mobility? Are we trying to serve underserved populations? What are we trying to do? And so I'm just looking forward to seeing this actually fleshed out so that we know really what we're trying to accomplish in this plan.
Thank you. And so I'll turn it over, I think first to Executive Director Rex, and then if other members, I think there's some opportunity for other dialogue from members as well. Executive Director Rex.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Levy, for raising this issue, particularly at the RTC on yesterday morning. We had a great conversation about housing. I will tell you that when we were reading the new law, this was the one, of course, that just jumped out. I kind of said, whoa, okay. You know, it was one of those deals, right? Because we tangentially have been involved in housing, right? Has always been part of our process, and intuitively, you know, there's an understanding of the relationship between land use, housing, transportation, right? But now we have some direction, albeit still a little gray and fuzzy about exactly what that means. And we will be getting further guidance from USDOT about exactly what is expected of MPOs and their role in coordination of housing and transportation. But we're excited about this opportunity. I will suggest that we will have a more comprehensive conversation about what our role with you all, the board, at our board retreat on April 2nd. So please, you know, if you can make that, please do. I think that'll be a good opportunity for us to establish some curbs about how you would like DRCOG and us, DRCOG, collectively to explore. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Rex. Any other comments from folks? Not seeing any. If anyone would like to make a motion to frame the discussion, there can still be comments after the motion if there's more discussion on this. Director Levy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2022-23 Unified Planning Work Program for Transportation Planning in the Denver region.
Thank you. Is there a second, Director Flynn?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion of the motion from members? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. The motion carries, and that takes us to our discussion on state legislative issues. So first we'll go through bills that we've previously taken positions on, and then once we're done with that, we'll go to new bills for consideration from the board. And I'll turn it over to Rich Morrow for a presentation. He's our Director of Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. Let me run quickly through the 4 bills that the board took positions on last month, and then we'll get into the 2 new bills that we have on this agenda. So first of all, I think the first 3 bills, the board had positions of support with amendments. And I'm happy to report that these bills, all 3 bills passed with board amendments, among others, but we were successful in getting those bills amended satisfactorily. 1035, which is the modernization of the Older Coloradans Act, was passed a couple weeks ago and actually has already passed the House of Representatives and is moving along to the Senate. Senate Bill 1026, which is the next one, also was amended, including recommendations from the DRCOG board and others to expand the definitions to include things like e-bikes and e-scooters, low-speed conveyances, etc. And that bill passed out of House Finance and is currently waiting discussion on the House floor. And the next bill, 1028,
also passed with, actually, it had two amendments that it passed with, and they were two amendments that the DRCOG board had recommended. The one to add a education component, and another one to lower the speed that is allowed to roll through the intersections down to 10 miles an hour. Now, there may be more discussion on a couple of other issues, I understand. One of the ones that our board brought up was on age issues, and there may still be some discussion going forward on that. And I know CDOT had raised some issues that may be addressed as well in future conversations. But our esteemed board chair did a great job testifying in committee yesterday before it started snowing. And I don't know, Ashley, if you wanted to say anything, or I thought it went really well.
I have nothing to add. I think that was a great summary of the bills.
Great. Okay. The last bill from last month, Senate Bill 16th, was postponed indefinitely in committee, so we won't see that one again. So let me just pause a minute and see if there's any questions or comments on the bills from last month.
Any questions from members on the bills from last month? All right, seeing none, thank you for that update, and we can move to the new bills.
All right, and as we add into the move into the new bills, I will mention that we have our two lobbyists, Ed Bowditch and Jennifer Castle, also attending virtually tonight, although I believe they are actually braving the weather down at the state capitol. And so I want to wish them safe travels home when they get a chance to go, but ask them to jump in if I miss anything important here going forward. So with that, I will mention House Bill 79, or sorry, Senate Bill 79. There's an aging related bill that staff would recommend, ask that the board take a position of support on. This is a bill that relates to our work in the field, particularly operating the ombudsman program in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. The bill would help fund efforts to provide education of caregivers in those facilities on the specifics of dementia and Alzheimer's and so forth. And it's something that's becoming more of an issue as we get more older adults in this region. And with that, we would recommend that the board support that bill.
Thank you. Any questions for members on that bill? Thank you. The first question or comment comes from Director Smith.
Hey, just a question on the funding of those training programs. So where's that funding coming from? Is it through the business or is it through a certain part of the state money?
It's yeah, it's coming through some state and federal money. I believe there's some federal grant money that's also available that by passing this bill, we will be able to access.
Okay, and it would require that the facility would do the training, or it would be another entity doing the training for the program or the facility?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember specifically. I don't think the facilities just on their own would provide the training. It would be overseen by the Department of Public Health and Environment, and they would establish the rules for how that training should be provided. And that's as specific as I can get at this point on that part.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for all you do.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Smith. Any other questions on that one? All right, and I'll just remind everyone on when we take these positions, we need 2/3 of the members that are voting and present. And so what I'll do is ask everybody to put their hands down, and I'll take abstentions first, so I know how many I have to get to get to 2/3, if that's okay. And just for members, sometimes members and their communities are able to take a position because their council has given them the latitude to support something for the greater benefit of the region, even if it's not something specifically they've taken a position on. And in other cases, councils want to specifically have taken positions before members go. So no hard feelings in any way if people need to take a position of abstain. So I just want to make sure the 3 people who have their hands up are raising them to abstain and don't have comments. Any abstentions on taking a position on this one? All right, last chance for raising your virtual hand for abstention. And if you're not able to do it, if you just unmute yourself and let me know if you are not able to raise your virtual hand. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So I will put your hands down, or you can put your hands down. There we go. All right, was there any other discussion from members? I didn't want to have cut that off if there was someone who wanted to ask another question. All right, not seeing any. All those in favor, please raise your hand of taking the staff recommendation of support. All right, so we needed 18 and we have 24 now. So thank you very much. And we can lower the hands. Thank you all for going through this kind of cumbersome process. Just make sure we have the right number of votes to get to 2/3. And then any opposed? Thank you, everyone. We support the staff recommendation of support. Rich, would you like to tell us about the next new bill?
Yes, I would. House Bill 1138, which, geez, I think you all have already heard a lot about this bill. So it might save me a little extra detail, but just to recap on this bill, it basically creates a tax credit for employers of 50% of the costs to provide alternative commuting options. The program is voluntary for employers with under 100 employees, but required for employers with over 100 employees. Again, you've heard some about the bill already. There's a little bit more detail in the summary in the matrix. Also is noted in the matrix that the basics of the bill do align with DRCOG board adopted policies. But we also recommend understand that there may be different opinions from the board. So we're asking for board direction on this. We're also wanted to mention that the staff have reviewed the bill and identified at least a couple of areas that we would want to amend. And just to mention those briefly, I think that the 2 notable areas relate to the development of the annual commuter survey that the bill talks about, and also the section that was mentioned before, but the section that provides for compensation for the transportation management groups that provide assistance to the employers. We do have DRCOG staff here available to answer questions and provide more detail to the board. And some of our staff can also explain how this bill can directly affect DRCOG's programs, particularly our Way to Go program. So with that, I'll stop and see if we have discussion.
Thank you very much, Rich. Any members have discussion on this one? Any comments or questions? Director Mulvey.
This one raises, sorry, I should speak with my face. This one raises some concerns for our municipality and our region, because we feel it may dampen our ability to attract larger employers. It has some very good purposes and some very good intentions, and there are some very good things in it. but there are some things about it that raise some concerns. And the fact that it could, as I mentioned, dampen our ability to attract employers, particularly those that may be reticent to comply. And we've heard from some employers that have issues with this. And so, for example, an employer that has to take a large building and rent space and then have to pay back out for the parking spaces, that's difficult. And when our whole purpose is to attract a large employer so that people don't have to drive in the first place, and then they have this additional requirement on top of it, they feel like they just can't get ahead. And why would they come here instead of going somewhere else? The other thing that concerns me is, and concerns the employers that we hear from, is that they, as the way to go, public comment heard from Ms. Taveros was, they recognize that some of the more spread out areas don't have as much access to or ability to build large transit. And we're at the edge of that area in our region. And so the purpose for this is to mandate something. And that's not always the best way to get something done. We're doing our best to bring those employers to us, and to mandate something additional is actually counterproductive to it right now. And that's not what we're saying, it's what they're telling us. And so that's my comment. I don't know if other regions that are growing are hearing the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mulvey. Any other comments? Director Sandgren.
Thank you. I echo Director Mulvey's concerns, and I think, I guess I would like to know more about how is this, the carrot and the stick that we saw the last time around, being on the outskirts where we do have unfinished transportation projects with no ends in sight of when they will actually be finished. A lot of our big employers are feeling the same kind of concerns. Smart Commute Metro North, this was a big concern with a lot of our bigger employers. So I guess I'm still not seeing where communities that don't have transit options or don't have the mobility opportunities that others do, how is this going to help or hurt, as Director Mulvey said, with some of our development opportunities moving into the future?
Rich, do you want to take a start at that? And then if you want to turn it over to someone else.
I think I'd rather turn that over to someone else.
Excellent. I'll see if Director Papsdorf would like to take a start there to tell us a little bit more about this bill, perhaps.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Ron Papsdorf, Transportation Planning Director. Thank you, first of all, for all the birthday wishes. Thank you especially to Doug for bringing that up this evening. Let's see. So as Rich said, there are two key components to this bill. The first of which is a voluntary component for any employee, any employer to pursue a corporate income tax credit, covering half of the cost of any expenditures that they incur providing certain transportation alternatives to their employees, but no requirement to do those things. And then there is a mandate for large employers that have 100 or more employees at any one site to do an annual commuter survey of their employees, provide information about transportation alternatives that may be available to them, and offer the pre-tax transportation benefits that are allowed under the federal IRS code. And where possible, there are some provisions and some caveats to it, but parking cash out option available to make that available to their employees. And so I think that's the big piece, and our understanding of the mandate component of the bill. It is, I will note that those mandates for large employees phase in over time, starting with, I believe, the MPOs in the ozone non-attainment area, which would include DRCOG. and then expand out to other areas of the state.
Thank you very much. And I'll just ask Director Sandgren if that answered your questions.
It's helpful. I'm going to abstain because we haven't taken a position as a city, but I still have a lot of concerns. The burdens that this puts on our employers, I think it's still, we're still coming back. They're still challenged from COVID and trying to come back from that. So any additional burdens or challenges added on to what they're trying to do to make it a comeback, I hesitate to support. So I'm going to abstain just because we haven't taken a position, but those are still the same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sandgren. And next, Paul, I'm so sorry. I remember I said your last name incorrectly last time, and now I'm so nervous. And it's so ironic because our last name is quite similar.
Paul Hazeman.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Hazeman, please.
I'm looking at the part about the parking space. So a lot of employers have parking areas, but they don't have reserved parking for most employees. What does that mean, that you give compensation to an employee and he doesn't have, or she doesn't have a parking place? How does that work?
Director Papstar?
Madam Chair, Director Haseman, I wish I could give you details. I honestly don't know. We were not involved in writing that provision. My understanding of the policy provision of that is that if the employer provides parking for its employees, if an employee were able to not take advantage of that parking, that the employer would offer a cash out payment to that employee that wouldn't actually use the parking spot.
It
Looks like
like
Rich might know more about the policy behind that.
Rich?
Yeah, no, actually not necessarily, but I did want to point out to you that Steve Erickson is also deeply involved in this work with his Way to Grow program. So just keep in mind, if Ron or I or Doug can't answer questions, Steve likely is able to as well.
Steve, would you like to weigh in on this parking issue for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Yes, Steve Erickson, Communications and Marketing Director at DRCOG, and in that role, I oversee the Way to Go program. I think Ron spelled it out as I understand it. Again, ultimately, what this is working towards is, a situation where there would be less parking required even with a large employer. You're getting employees basically to commit to using other means to get to work other than a single occupant vehicle in that way. So but I think Ron did a good job explaining that.
Well, it's just to continue, it's not clear to me. It looks like it's a burden on the employer to be paying compensation when he's not offering a reserved spot. Or have tried to enforce it if an employee comes to work and uses a parking spot on an occasion. So I'm thinking that there's some looseness there. If you can't tighten that up, I'm not sure I can be in favor of this.
Thank you, Director Haseman. Director Levy?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll say at the outset that I hope that we will take a position of support for this bill. But I did have a question also, maybe Director Papstor or Erickson, where the part of the bill that is a requirement, and there are very few of them, which is why I actually don't think it's going to be a burden on large employers. But it does require them to offer employees qualified transportation fringe benefits that are defined in the federal tax code. Does anybody know what those are? And then I'd like to speak a little bit to the parking issue as well.
Is there a member of staff or CDOT who knows about what the definition of those fringe benefits are as defined in the federal statutes?
Madam Chair, Steve Erickson might be able to take the best shot.
Yeah, I think, the idea with these fringe benefits is that they're fairly easy for an employer to implement. As I understand it, it typically just takes a few hours to get this set up, and you're basically using pre-tax dollars to an employee that would be, let's say, purchasing a transit pass on their own, or, there's other commute options included in that. But as a result of that, both the employer and the employee end up saving.
Okay, thank you. And if I could just follow up a little bit to some of the comments we've heard already.
Director Levy, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wonder, just on your first point, I think some of these questions that people have raised are not totally completely answered. And so if staff can come back when we talk about this again with some more detailed answers on some of the questions that have been raised, including this most recent one. Director Levy?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think we are going to want to get a little more clarification, but this is a very different bill than the E-Trip regulation that we saw last year, and I hope we really do look at it with fresh eyes. And the tax credit part of it is voluntary, so that would not produce any kind of burden on employers. And for the part that the only part I can find that is mandatory is the part that applies to large employers, and that they do a commuter survey annually, that they do offer qualified transportation fringe benefits. And we will want to probably know a little bit more about what that is. Although the employer has the discretion to determine which benefits to offer. So there's even there, it sounds like there's a menu of options. Offer commuter choice information. And then on the parking space, the way this is written, to offer a cash allowance to employees in lieu of a parking space, this would only apply if the employer provides a parking supplement or subsidy, pardon me, to the employee, and they're able to reduce the number of paid parking spaces without a penalty. So for an employer, say, who has purchased a block of parking spaces in a parking structure to make available, and they're not able to reduce that, so they're contractually obligated to pay, it sounds like this wouldn't apply. But I can really see the appeal of this, because I have been in situations where I have worked for an employer who has had paid parking as a benefit, which I did not use because I was able to take the bus to work, but I did not get any sort of corresponding subsidy for the bus. And so when you have paid parking, that's often seen as an inducement to drive because it takes some of the expense away. And so I think this is just an effort to offer subsidies for other forms of commuting, but I think it's very generous, actually. So I think this is a great change. I think it's really designed around incentives and inducements and not mandates. So I do hope that we'll take a position of support.
Director Binkley?
Hey, y'all. I will not be turning my camera on because my house is a mess and y'all don't need to be looking at that. So I'm sorry about that. But on a less granular level, I just have kind of a thought / question / for people who know more, please feel free to let me know any information I might not have. But I'm making the connection to something else here that's a little bit different, which is I'm not sure tying all of these things to an employer is really good. Like, I don't think it's worked well with health insurance, right? Like, that's, as I get older, that's the first thing I think of as I'm changing jobs, is like, what are the benefits going to be? And I'm just thinking it's something maybe the government should do more. I feel like employers aren't going to be as equitable around these things. A couple of other people have brought up, and I agree with the premise behind it, but I just feel uneasy about tying things to employers and jobs, especially with what we've seen just happen versus other ways to do that. So I'm just open to comments, feedbacks, information I might not have.
Thank you, Director Binkley. Any other comments? Director Nurmela.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one, only because I think I have worked out in California where we've with jurisdictions that have had significant transit access, that have set transportation demand management goals and requirements similar to this, but even more significant, with very precise single occupancy vehicle reduction requirements. But those are in conditions where there was great access to transit. And, Westminster, we've had some lines cut. There are areas that just don't have, we have big employment centers that don't have access to much transit at all. So it's just something to think about in terms of universally applying this, that perhaps it could be a little more focused on strong transit or TOD rich communities. Again, I'm not completely opposed to it, because as an urban planner, I highly value this kind of work, but I'm also just balancing, like some of the comments before me, the areas that don't have great transit access, how will this be reaching the goal that it is trying to reach? And what is is there a specific reduction that this bill is trying to attain? And I guess one additional question I would have is, if an employer with over 100 employees, doesn't meet these, how is this being monitored, and what is the impact if they fail to comply?
And I'll turn that over.
Madam Chair, I'll just say, conversations we've had this at the staff level, we've not been able to identify anything like that in the bill. So I think it's left an open question. Others can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's my understanding too, Rich.
Director Nurmela?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That would be helpful to have this just be a little more focused.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Director Shaw?
Thank you. Although the aspirations that the bill seeks are so important to our region, I think that we have lost as a state a lot of ground in the last few years about being considered business friendly. And that concerns me very, very much. I also feel that threshold of 100 employees, I'm not sure that is a large business, at least in my mind. And with all businesses running so very lean these days, a lot of turnover, it does take the cost of staff time to do some of the reporting and filings and offers and advertisement of these offers to employees. So I'm not in favor of supporting this as it's written. I just think it's not business friendly, and we should be considering that as well.
Thank you, Director Shaw. I'm not seeing any other. Director Walton?
I liked this bill, previously when it came up, having a major employer under construction with a facility in the city of Lafayette. We had some conversations, and I just sort of let HR people know about the opportunity, and also tried to spread or plant the seed with them that perhaps as they are under construction in future phases, they maybe would have the opportunity to consider not constructing as much parking, or even save money by not having to construct a parking garage, which was an example as a benefit to businesses in the past. So I just wanted to share that that thought and comment, and hopeful incentive to consider kind of the long-term impact that something like this might have to bend the curve toward multimodal types and alternate transportation options.
Thank you, Director Walton. Director Spear.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, I mean, to me, this feels somewhat business friendly. I know it is, putting a potential cost on there. There's also some subsidies, but what I'm thinking about is all the employees in our region who are really looking for alternative modes of transportation and other ways to get where they're going, particularly as they're having to live farther from their businesses. And it really is, a strain on folks to have to spend so much time in their cars. And I think where one of the places we're coming from in Boulder in looking on this bill with some favor is really thinking about how we can enable the folks who are commuting into our city to work at our companies to have some choice in how they get there, so that their primary option isn't necessarily to take a car, which just adds so much stress to their days. And this may be because we have so many people who commute in that we're really looking at this. But in my mind, this is something that could provide a very appealing option, especially for larger businesses who are looking for kind of additional things they can offer to employees as incentives to work there.
Thank you, Director Spear. Director Coombs.
Yeah, so just adding on to what Director Spear just said, I think there are a lot of options for how businesses can comply with this. So it's not everybody has to take the bus, right? It includes telecommuting options. It includes carpooling, right? It's not all about transit. Of course, we want to have good transit and we want to incentivize the use of transit where it's available, but there are other options that are included in the bill. And as far as the fringe benefits, I know for the city of Aurora, we just have a voluntary, you can pre-tax contribute to a transportation savings account that you then have to use for transit related costs. So it could be something as simple as that. Maybe we can get a little clarification on if that's the type of fringe benefit that's under discussion. But that's something that's voluntary for the employee, easy for the employer to implement, especially if you are a large entity. And so that, in that sense, it does not seem to me to be overly burdensome. And it really does, again, give incentives for folks to include those types of programs. So it's not demanding that that they do something specific, but only incentivizing that they look into these various options. So it seems way more flexible than the E-Trip program that we saw before, and gives both businesses and workers more opportunities, more options, more ways to just do something other than drive to and from work every day.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Coombs. Director Lindstedt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. I think, this is a really dynamic and thoughtful compromise, especially from the discussions we've had over the last year. So I think this is a really good, thoughtful way to move forward, and that our businesses, have a variety of options to make this work, and to reduce congestion and increase multimodal use throughout the region. So I'm very appreciative of the thoughtful discussions and all the work that happened to get this bill forward, because I think it really is an improvement from what we've seen in the last year. So I hope we can support this tonight.
Thank you, Director Lindstedt. And I just want to give folks a chance who haven't had a chance to speak once, a chance, and then I'll go through and we can take second comments from folks. Are there any people who haven't had a chance to speak on this topic that would like to add anything in? I'll just add my comments for a moment. I actually think this is a very positive bill. I think it helps us achieve our greenhouse gas goals in a way that is very voluntary and flexible. I am concerned at how there's a lot of confusion and information gaps that are present tonight. So I would really hope that we could get more information for everyone so that we could at least all have the same basis of information to be making the decision off of. There are large employers in our area that voluntarily do some of these things, like the paying for parking to reduce their parking and providing transit passes and things like that. And the employees and the employers like it very much. It's seen as a benefit. There are even some companies that are giving, like days off if you carpool and some other incentives to try to reduce some of the impact. So I think there are a lot of things that can happen. I think having the tax credit is a benefit. And just sort of backing out, when you think about how we fund some of our multimodal solutions in the region, there is a lot of cost that's shifted to sales taxpayers, which is a combination of different users. But I think this recognizes that employers have been asking for more access to transit service because they want people to be able to get to work. And we continue to see in our employment centers, employers asking us to increase the amount of transit and transportation access. And I see this as a way to helping meet the desire that they have collaboratively to increase access for their employees to get to work. So I think this is positive, but I just guess if there is so much conflict tonight, I would encourage us to monitor this perhaps until we can get everyone's questions answered so that we can have at least an equal basis of information to make the decision off of next month. So going through again for folks, Rich Morrow, did you want to say something?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to, although maybe I could wait till after all of the board members speak. But what I was going to mention was picking up on what you just said, a couple of areas where staff has identified we could seek amendments, particularly as the bill affects DRCOG and its programs. And so, the board can consider alternate, I guess, positions, like you mentioned, monitor or amend or that sort of thing too.
Did you want to tell us about any?
But I could go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead,
sure,
just so that when people go the second time, if they want to respond to your comment.
And again, I'll ask the rest of our staff to jump in if I forget something. But one is, there seems to be a disconnect actually in the bill from what's mentioned in the summary to what's actually in the text of the bill, where when it talks about the, let's see, it's CDOT and the Colorado Energy Office collaborating to develop an annual employer commuter survey. In the summary, it says CDOT, the Energy Office, and the MPOs. In the bill, MPOs were left out of the language. And in talking to proponents, that appears to have been an oversight, that we should have the MPOs mentioned in the bill. So we'd like an opportunity to pursue that. And then the second one is in the section toward the end of the bill where it directs funding to the TMOs and TMAs to help pay for their costs in assisting employers with these elements that they would be working on. Since Dr. and I think Steve would correct me, his program already works with like 1,000 different employers or something. The MPOs would be involved in also helping employers do this work, that we ought to also be included in the bill to get some compensation for our efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. And so Director Levy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I like your idea that we should monitor this and while we get a little more information. But I guess I just want to say, I think from listening to the comments, which I really appreciate, I think there's a misperception about what the bill does, because there's so little of it that is actually mandatory. The bulk of it is about incentives. And I don't recall which of the directors mentioned, people wanting options, and that's what the bill offers is a tax credit for providing those options. None of that is mandatory. And if you don't want to go through the burden of the reporting that's necessary to claim the tax credit, you don't have to. So the bulk of the bill is really trying to just reward employers that want to do things, because some of them are costly and it gives them a tax credit. And again, just going back to the only part that I see here that would be mandatory for employers of 100 or more would be to simply create a survey, a commuter survey, to find out about commuting patterns and preferences, offering one of the fringe benefits at the employer's choice. And there, I do think we need to know what those are to see whether those would be widely available. But offer isn't the same as requiring employees to accept that or anything. It's just make available. Offer commuter choice information, again, just make information available, and then offer a cash allowance in lieu of parking. And it's not penalizing an employer for providing parking. It's not requiring them to reduce the amount of parking. So I see this as a very permissive bill. And if anything, I would be concerned that it doesn't go very far and may not actually have much effect in the long run. And I heard the concerns about large employers in the areas that aren't transit rich. And I get that concern, but I don't see where this bill would impose any requirements that would be difficult to meet in a non-transit rich area. So I think it's a quite benign bill, and I think we should just monitor it for now until we can find out more about what those the fringe benefits are that would be required, because I think that's the only thing that is mandatory that could be a burden depending on what that is.
Director Papsdorf?
Thank you. I will qualify this by saying not only am I not an attorney, I'm not a tax attorney, so this does not constitute tax advice for anyone. But I am on the IRS website, and qualified transportation benefits are a ride. I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but it basically a van pool subsidy for employees, a ride in a van pool, a transit pass, or qualified parking. And qualified parking is basically providing carpool parking, sort of advantaged parking for your employees. Those are the three qualified transportation benefits according to the IRS website and my 10 minutes of research.
Thank you, Director Papsdorf. Director Nurmela.
Thank you for the additional opportunity. I also like the idea of monitoring this. We can get a little more detail. I agree with Director Levy that in some areas I would love to see us move so much further towards TDM work throughout the state. One thing that would be helpful to understand for me would be, I think somebody had mentioned that the parking cash out would not apply to employers that had to, a lot of employers, whether, often in urban settings, when they lease their space, they will pay for a certain amount of parking, either tied to that specific building or project, or they lease in another another parking garage. And so they're paying for parking. So I'd just be curious to know if there is truly some portion of the bill that talks about where that cash out would not apply. And then again, I'll just underline the monitoring and enforcement. I think, how is it enforced? What are the penalties would be important for employers and us as cities to understand. And then finally, it would be, I definitely support the MPO having the opportunity to get some funding to help assist employers, because I'm seeing, you know, that a commuter survey can be kind of produced and hopefully utilized by employers, so they wouldn't have to do their, you know, so obviously you're creating this level of consistency for everybody to survey their employees, but any other additional assistance that could be brought from the MPO to employers, they could tap into a website, let's say, and hit their location and get some information that helps them create their commuter choice information or something like that. So yeah, that's.
Thank you, Director Nurmilla. Mr. Erickson.
Yeah, I'll just quickly respond to that excellent question, Director Nurmilla. And I will say that, you know, this region is probably better positioned to support a bill like this than just about any other region in the country that's implemented one. The Way to Go program here at DRCOG actually manages things like the van pool program and our guaranteed ride home program, and has a lot of sort of foundational assets in place. Audrey DeBarros in her public comments mentioned our My Way to Go platform. That's the platform we use for trip planning and tracking and ride matching, and we use it for employer campaigns all the time. We have enhanced that platform just in the last year to basically facilitate both employer assessments, what are you doing today in the workplace, as well as to have a template for an employee survey. Now, it might be that if this were to pass, we would work with CDOT and make subtle changes to that survey, but it would be a very simple process for an employer to actually distribute an employee survey and get those results back in. We're able to collect all that data and distribute it or report it out really in any way we need to. So really a lot of the assets are in place really to support this well. And to Rich's point, yeah, in terms of funding, DRCOG and our outreach staff in the Way to Go partnership and program cover roughly 40% of those large employers in our region.
Thank you. Next, we have Director Mulvey.
Thank you. To hopefully wrap up a little bit, I've worked in 3 different metropolitan regions and want to reflect on what we've heard here. And this discussion really does emphasize that we have a lot of collaborative discussion and reflection to undertake. We all really need to take a closer look at this bill and what it's really doing and not doing. And our discussion really emphasizes that we have a lot of different profiles. We have some cities where most people commute in. We have other cities where most people stay. We have other cities where there's a belief that people are getting rides home from work. We have other places where that's just not happening. And then we have other cities that have access to public transit in the form of bus, and others where it's in the form of a train. There are just plain old different profiles, and that needs to be considered in this bill. And we need to have perhaps more discussion to make sure that there's really true compromise that we're getting very close to. William was so right. We are close to it. We're just really not there, which this conversation emphasizes. We also have a difference of opinion clearly as to whether or not our employers are really asking for this. Some of us say we're hearing from employers that do, and some of us say we're hearing from employers that don't. As an example, I can say, is this sized right? A mid-sized law firm is going to have attorneys that need a car because they need the car to go somewhere to do their job. But then they have a bunch of employees that have to get to work every day, but that office is situated somewhere that there is no van pool. and there is no train that's going to take them there every day. So what do you do then? Because their rent includes the parking spot. And so to also answer something else, yes, I've had the fringe benefit of both the train pass and the van pool. And the third one, I forget what you mentioned. Oh, the parking space. So yeah, they really all are available, but they do take up extra administrative costs on the part of the employer. So they have to administer that. And for an employee base that's only 100, that may or may not be possible. So I do think that this does need to, monitor is really, Ashley, Madam Chair, the right way to go, in my view, or to just take a really big pause where we really seem to be, even those of us that like some of these ideas, really seem to have some big questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mulvey. Director Teal?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I don't know if we're to a point for a motion yet, but I too would like to echo what we've heard, that perhaps this is a bill that we want to monitor. And I'd just like to point out, in addition to the comments from Director Mulvey, the fact that, we are in an inflationary environment right now, and it's wage inflation is starting to hit our employers. We're starting to hear that from our employers down in Douglas County, that wage inflation is starting to strike them at a time when they are still, first of all, they're in a quarter and they're within their budget. And I should say they're within their budget cycle. And so I kind of take issue with the comment made by my very honorable colleague from Boulder, in that this is, fairly benign of a requirement, but it's still one more requirement when our employers are in a very high pressure situation of having to divert mid-budget cycle, resources in order to just keep their employees on staff. So I think there's, in addition to all the gaps, I too would speak in favor of entertaining a motion to monitor this bill until we see some of those gaps filled. I do think we should probably give direction to Rich if that's possible, or at the very least, I think Rich has been monitoring some of the comments.
Oh, sure.
Understands, Rich, I think you understand the support of the proposed amendments that you brought to us, that we would get behind that, but then also based on the conversation, I know Rich is really good at picking up on other things to probably bring to our legislators in consideration of this bill. So
I wish I could find the thumbs up button here. That was.
Yeah, I mean, I seriously wanted to applaud when we were, especially Ashley's comments, pardon me, Madam Chair's comments earlier. I couldn't find my applause button, but so Madam Chair, I don't know if we're complete enough in our discussion to have a motion to monitor, but I would speak in favor of taking that action at the conclusion of the discussion.
Thank you, Director Teal. Director Maurer?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm not going to turn on my camera. My internet's a little unstable tonight. And I want to just tell people that I worked for an employer. There was about 650 employees metro area, and we were offered the RTD pass. And, you can't always use, like the light rails or a bus or whatever wasn't always available. But I tell you what it did do is when it was a benefit, because if you wanted to go do something like entertainment, a game or something, you could use that pass. So that really was a benefit to the employees. It was a real plus. And I kind of look at it as a way to, it's another thing to attract employees, when people are trying to find people. The one thing that I saw was a missed opportunity, though, because I went back and asked, because they had several different options that you could use for other than driving your vehicle. is they never surveyed or kept any type of data on what was used or how it was used. So I like really the survey, even though it's a pain, to prove a point. So, and I am good with monitoring, and thank you.
Thank you, Director Maurer. Director Wheelock?
Yeah, I just want to say that I will be willing to vote for a monitor position this evening, but I would also be willing to vote for a support position based on the preponderance of the comments that I've heard this evening and that I felt the most compelling for me. I think it's mostly that this is primarily elective on the part of the employees for the most part. They're not all of it, but most of it is not required and most of it is not mandatory. There are multiple ways to take advantage of it that go beyond RTD or a number of other methods that you can use. I think that the ability to take advantage of it is rich. And I think that the thoughts about transit-rich areas is changing as we become more transit-rich throughout the entire region. There are areas like CDOT's Pegasus program, which will bring many buses offering far more diverse routing and schedules than we've seen with some of the other bus services before. As these develop, that's only evolving. And the other thing that's evolving is the workforce. The workforce is asking for these kinds of solutions. And so if employers are having a hard time finding employees and they can get a tax credit as opposed to a write-off for providing those kinds of services and benefits, it's really an incentivization for those people who are smart enough in trying to find a workforce to provide the workforce what it's really looking for. I think at the end of the day, this would be successful. I'm sure we can find ways to improve it if we monitor it and find amendments that we wish to seek, but I think it's a great bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wheelock. I'm not seeing any other hands, and so I'll turn it back over to Director Teal to frame the discussion with the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it pleases the board, I'd like to make a motion to take a position of monitor on House Bill 1138.
Thank you. Is there a second, Director Maurer?
Second.
Thank you, Director Maurer and Director Haseman. You're very good. He just chiming in to make the second. Thank you very much. So I just want to sort of see by a nod from folks. There wasn't a lot of discussion around the points that Rich made around asking the sponsors to look at correcting the things around the MPO with the funding of the MPO and things. That seems like the board would overwhelmingly support that kind of direction. I see a lot of head nodding. Is there anyone that felt very differently about that wants to bring up any points or other different points? Director Haseman?
I really do, think the bill is a good one that we should, eventually get behind it. I think there were some gaps in terms of what we understand, and look forward to hearing what additional information is brought forward, because we need to do as much as we can to support public transportation in the metropolitan area.
Thank you, Director Levy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just closed the bill, so I can't point to language, but I think we also might want to explore, have Rich explore with the bill sponsors whether the requirements for the large employers could be modified there, because I think what the federal IRS code fringe benefits considers is pretty narrow. And I think that may not benefit a lot of people, what's actually on that list: the van pool, the transit pass, and parking for carpools. I think there's a bicycle commuter provision in there as well. And maybe expanding that to include some of those items that are on the list of things for which you can get a tax credit might be helpful, and it might actually make the bill a little bit more effective, because I could see employers of 100 or more offering these things and nobody accepting it because they may be located in an area for which that's just not helpful. So I think the bill could be improved if there were more options to those employers that are 100 or more.
Thank you, Director Levy. Director Teal?
Well, Madam Chair, it's usually not our practice. The motion is to, to monitor. However, I would think it is in the spirit of the motion to have direction given to Rich to pursue some of these amendments that have been articulated by other members.
Thank you. And does the seconder agree? I believe it was Director Maurer.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. And so the vote for this evening, and I'll turn it back over to the folks that have their hands up still just to get the final comments in, would be to take a position of monitor, but to give direction of staff to work with the bill sponsors to get some of our questions addressed, and then to specifically address the things that Rich brought up and some of the other suggestions from members tonight. Great. And so Director Haseman.
Yes.
It's a legacy hand. Sorry about that. Director Starker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the spirit of going out to try to monitor and try to get some more information, there were a couple of things that I had questions about. It talks about for large employers, I believe, to offer qualified transportation benefits related to the federal. And I gotta get to another screen here. That comply with the Federal Department of Transportation or something like that. There was also something about offering a cash allowance in lieu of the parking, but it said under certain circumstances in the summary that I read. And then if there was some more information about the $250,000 for the transportation management associations and how that would sort of interact with the employers that may be developing these plans for their transportation. So those are some of the issues that I thought we might get some clarity on. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Starker. Those are inclusive of the motion. So thank you very much. Any other discussion from members? All right, and so just once again on these, we have to have 2/3 of members voting and present to be able to take a position. So if there are any members that are abstaining on taking a position on this bill, would you please raise your hand at this time if you're abstaining? Thank you very much. And you can put your hands down, please. And then all those in favor of taking a position of monitor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. You can put your hands down. I'll just wait, there's still 2. Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. The Board of Directors approves a position of monitor. Thank you, Rich. Do you have any other new bills for us this evening?
I do not, but I could answer Director Starker's one of his questions right now, if you want.
That would be great.
On the parking, the provision here says offer a cash allowance to employees in lieu of a parking space. This requirement only applies to large employers who provide a parking subsidy to employees and are able to reduce the number of paid parking spaces without penalty. Does that help?
Thank you, Rich. And so Executive Director Rex, if you could, before the next meeting, either include in the board packet for next time or get a memo out to members on some of these questions. I think that would help the discussion a lot. Thank you very much to everybody for the robust debate there. And that takes us to our next agenda item, which is an informational briefing. We're going to hear about the Reimagine RTD update. If you're following along in the packet, it's attachment L. Matthew Helfand, our Senior Transportation Planner in Transportation Planning and Operations, is going to tell us about this tonight. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good evening, Matthew Helfand, Senior Transportation Planner. Reimagine RTD is an effort to forecast the changing transportation needs of our region. And when complete, RTD intends that this process will identify comprehensive strategies to better connect people and places. A key component of this project is developing a system optimization plan. RTD released a draft plan for public review in early January, and public comments on this plan have been extended to March 9th. This briefing contains a slightly updated PowerPoint that includes the extended period for public comment and more information on workforce challenges. The updated presentation will be made available to everyone. And we have Bill Van Meter from RTD here to provide the overview and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Meter?
Thank you, Chair and Matthew. I am working on my screen share. I hope I am successful.
You are.
Awesome. So I understand as well that I am supposed to start my presentation by wishing Ron Papsdorf a happy birthday. So today I have the opportunity to provide a very brief overview of the Reimagine RTD. I'm going to focus primarily on the system optimization plan, which, as Matthew just noted, the public comment period for has been extended. That was an awkward construct of a sentence, but more on that as we move along. I want to give you an update on the public engagement, which has been extended again on the system optimization plan until March 9th. Touch briefly on the mobility plan for the future as well. So I've talked about it. There's a system optimization plan. I will slip and refer to it as the SOP during this presentation. The acronym SOP stands for the System Optimization Plan. That's an effort we're currently underway on and in the midst of to redesign transit services in the short to midterm for RTD, balancing travel needs in the region with our budgetary limitations, as well as our workforce limitations. We're also, in parallel, working on the mobility plan for the future, identifying long-term strategies for RTD and public transit in the metro area on a time frame that corresponds with and informs the regional transportation plan for DRCOG. So I won't read all of the bullets on this slide in the interest of time, but this slide does identify the key factors or key reasons for proceeding with a system optimization plan. Some of the targets in terms of increasing ridership and addressing service performance and efficiency, remaining competitive, addressing needs and changing travel needs that have occurred as a result of the pandemic. Another slide that depicts the guiding principles that our board of directors adopted for RTD in early 2021. Mobility, optimizing based on current travel patterns and future anticipated patterns. Equity, focusing on social equity in Title VI, which was a real recognized strength of RTD's service provision during the ongoing pandemic. Addressing financial constraints, our workforce constraints as well, looking for opportunities for partnership and sustainability. Those were the goals set out by RTD. Some of the challenges: one, nearly 2,400 square mile service area, and those competing demands regarding balancing coverage and service throughout this large district that we serve, as well as the interplay between that and providing a solid core network. I've addressed and talked a little bit about our financial challenges. We also have workforce challenges. The first line here depicts RTD's experience in 2021 regarding bus operators. We were able to hire 97 new bus operators in 2021. 167 left RTD. That downward trajectory is one that we are laser focused on reversing. but we have 147 vacancies. That's an 18% vacancy rate for bus operators today. Similarly, for other key support staff, mechanics, cleaners, and other folks, we have some pretty sizable vacancies today. And then I'll pull your attention to the bottom line, which shows that in order to even achieve the service levels that we're projecting, about a 20% increase over what we're providing today with the system optimization plan, we need to onboard 250 to 400 additional bus operators, a real challenge for RTD. Some of the goals for our system optimization plan or SOP: simplification, having well-defined routes, getting rid of irregular trip patterns, and having more consistent service spans, when service starts each morning and when it ends each evening, and improving reliability. One of the key ways to do that is eliminating very long routes. The longer the route, the more unanticipated traffic, congestion, and other factors can impact the on-time performance for a route. Many of you may have seen this graphic before. We're working on developing and identifying 4 service categories as part of the system optimization plan. Unique service types. This first layer shows our rail network, the current rail network, with a layer on of the community or local routes. Layering on then commute routes, although there's less of a focus moving forward on commute routes than we've had historically at RTD. They're still a key piece of the puzzle, from key destinations such as the airport, the Southeast Corridor, Denver Tech Center. I've now downtown Boulder. I've now the US 36 corridor. Now set myself up for failure by not identifying all of the key destinations and commute patterns in the region, but we are still focused on that. Our connect routes, local bus and rail routes, connect to the backbone of the service, which are the rail services, and the core services layered on top of there. So there's some metrics on this slide. In the interest of time, I won't read them all, but I want to emphasize that one of the things that's happening is an improvement in service, access to 15-minute or better service for many folks throughout the district, especially those in communities who rely on transit for their transportation needs, as well as a 20% increase in midday service. So again, the system optimization plan is positing a 20+% increase over our current service levels. So we're pretty excited about that, even with the financial and workforce constraints that we have. So it will be requisite on RTD to implement this over time. We don't have particularly the human capital resources today to be able to implement the SOP in one fell swoop. So in terms of implementation, the project team will be reviewing and analyzing all of the comments we are receiving from December through March 9th, developing a revised SOP, trying to incorporate and address as many of those comments as possible. A vast majority of the comments on the SOP are requests for additional service. Based on our funding and workforce limitations, it's going to be difficult to address all of those satisfactorily, but we will work to do the best that we can. And as I was saying, SOP, system optimization plan implementation, will be phased through the next 4 or 5 years through 2027. Our board of directors requested that staff and our general manager and CEO Johnson look at the opportunity to extend comment and public engagement on this key piece of our plan, our service for the next 5 years, beyond the original February 9th date that we had established. That is being implemented. We informed our board about that last week, And so in an ongoing manner, we will continue doing a number of the pieces of outreach to key stakeholders, to our customers, and to the public at large that we have been doing throughout the engagement for the system optimization plan. Additionally, in February, we're putting collateral on our buses and trains to reach our customers. We're increasing our media outreach, digital ads and PIDs, holding an additional public meeting, Spanish outreach and public meeting, and doing other layering on of work to reach out to our constituents, to our public. To date, we have received over 1,000 comments. Broad geographic area. There's a map showing a pinpoint of where those comments have come from. As I noted, a lot of interest in adding or enhancing existing transit services, adding stops, improving access to stations. Over 80% of the comments are in that direction, and we're working to compile that and provide that information for our board of directors, for the public, and for others at large. Real quickly, mobility plan for the future workflow. Parallel, looking at 2050, looking at how we can complement and support the longer term goals and targets of the DRCOG regional transportation plan and aligning with that 2050 time frame. I won't try to read everything on this, but we are moving along and addressing key items such as district boundaries and the size of the district, workforce challenges, parking access, mobility as a service, fleet electrification, bus and rail fleet maintenance plans, our financial plans, constraints and opportunities, fast tracks, and potential impacts from things such as Tabor on RTD's financial capabilities to deliver services in the future. That, Chair and colleagues, concludes my attempt. Hopefully you found it somewhat, my attempt to update you on Reimagine, hopefully you found it somewhat engaging and informative.
Thank you, Mr. Van Meter. Any questions from members on this topic tonight? I hope everybody has a chance to review the system optimization plan within your team. This is pretty transformational work from RTD, and no easy task that you all are undertaking, given the realities of what's happened with the pandemic and everything. I guess I'll just, while people are thinking about other questions and getting their hands up, ask the group, maybe it would be appropriate for us as the regional planning organization, metropolitan planning organization, to have our staff go through this and perhaps make some comments before the deadline, just very high level look at this and sort of compare it to MetroVision. Take a look at this and compare it to the targets that have been set for our region for the greenhouse gas rulemaking, and sort of just, even if it's not making any judgments one way or another, but just comparing them to those things and making those comments known for the RTD board, just so they know where we're coming from. I wonder what folks would think about that. Director Flynn?
Thank you, Chair Stolzen. Bill, could you clarify, do the numbers, the statistics, the figures that you gave there on staffing and on the levels of service, et cetera, are they exclusive of the P3 Denver Transit operators? Does that include the commuter rail lines and their staffing and their issues?
No, those numbers, I am virtually certain, are RTD's staffing experience, not our contracted services.
Okay, would you be able to incorporate what DTO is going through? Because I see every day on my rider alerts, I see cancellations of trips because of staff shortages on the A line. And so just curious if they are at the same level of staff shortages as the RTD operated staff are. It'd be helpful to know that as well.
I can look into that. I'm not certain how readily available that sort of information is as a private concern corporation. Sure. Their contractual requirements with RTD might not afford us the opportunity for that look inside. I don't know.
As I should have recalled, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands or really reactions. So I wonder, I love to give the next chairman some additional work perhaps, but maybe the incoming chair, Director Flynn, could work with the executive director to kind of look at this and maybe make some high level comments that we could provide from DRCOG. Does that seem acceptable to the group? Director Levy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we should consider doing that, or and think about the areas in which we would want to have input. Transit RTD is so important to achieving the greenhouse gas emissions reductions that we're looking for. It's so important to mobility, reducing VMT, everything that DRCOG works on. And given that this is going to set the direction of ridership, I think DRCOG ought to provide some comments. So I'd be in favor of doing that.
Director Flynn?
Thank you. I'm on the other screen, just looking at the calendar. Doug, could I ask you, are we in March, are we having a board workshop in March? And I'm not recalling that right offhand.
Yes, we are. We're having a board workshop on March 2nd.
Would it be possible to get a presentation on the Reimagine RTD and solicit any comments from the board, because public comment closing a week later doesn't give us a lot of lead time to delve into that.
Yeah, I'm sure we can provide a draft to the board. That has not given us much time though with regards to getting it in the packet. It might be a little late because that would be, the packet goes out on Wednesday.
Right.
I'll get with staff and we'll figure something out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Director Maurer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm part of the Reimagine RTD, and surprising they sent this out some time ago, and went to my council. They really didn't have anything to say at that time. However, RTD has reached out again and said, we're adding more time on. So I don't know how many other agencies they did this with. I felt it was everybody. But yes, my agency took it upon themselves that they will meet with every city council person and go through this SOP plan. And I just thought, is some of that going on besides just my agency?
Yes, Director Maurer, I know it at least is in our area too. So I know there's some additional outreach happening.
So, well, and I guess the reason I brought that up is because, yes, we will provide our comments. So that'll help with DRCOG not having to get comments from us anyway.
Thank you very much, Director Maurer. Any other comments on this topic tonight? All right, seeing none, that takes us to our Regional Vision Zero educational marketing campaign. It's attachment M in the packet, and Steve Erickson, our Director in Communications and Marketing, is going to tell us about this.
Yes, good evening again, everyone. I feel compelled to wish Ron Papsdorf a happy birthday. I am compelled to wish you happy birthday, Ron. Probably most of you know that the board adopted a plan taking action on Regional Vision Zero more than a year ago. And that the Vision Zero initiative is establishing a target for 0 fatalities or serious injuries on our transportation system. And it's my pleasure tonight really to hand this off to a marketing agency representative, the president of Hill Avium, Linda Hill, to sort of describe the campaign that we undertook this last year. So take it away, Linda.
Thank you, Steve. Can everybody hear me? Just do a quick nod. Okay, yes. Great. I am going to share my screen and then I will introduce our creative director that is with us as well. So can everybody see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Thank you so much. First off, thank you. We know it's late and we are keeping this at 15 minutes, which as a communications agency is a great thing to do. So with me today is Gordy Hirsch, who is our creative director. And just wanted to thank everybody again for your time. It's been a pleasure to work with Steve and his team. And then obviously our team and some of the partners that helped put this whole campaign together. So we're going to give a really brief overview of the program, launch into the creative that has run, discuss a little bit of the media strategy, and then what the PR strategy was as well. And as most of you are aware, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, obviously DRCOG, approved moving forward with this public education campaign focused on the regional Vision Zero work plan in April of 20. What we were able to do is really pour through a lot of the great research that DRCOG provided to us, which included the regional Vision Zero work plan, and then other information that was sourced from CDOT and NHTSA, as well as there were some other research pieces from AAA. And we came back with 3 strategic directions, which we'll get into in just a moment. Each of those directions were tested with our core audiences, which I will get to in just a moment as well. And then on the program background, Steve covered a little bit of this already about the transportation safety philosophy that Vision Zero is. And I think the biggest things are there's 6 objectives that are in existence with 25 action initiatives. The overall program goals are to achieve the 0 traffic deaths by 2040 and achieve 0 serious injuries by 2045. So we were selected to go ahead and handle the public information campaign. And first and foremost, the piece that we came away with from all of the wonderful research that was provided was we're in a very different place today than we were, let's say, 3 years ago. We've got that double whammy of the pandemic and an economic downturn. And what we were finding is that the audiences that we were speaking to were not feeling in control. And so our research hit upon a very, very simple insight. People tended to care more and act more on things that they felt were within their control. As I mentioned before, the research that we used and then the strategic directions we came up with, we tested, and the one that rose to the top, the very tip top, was slow speeders proved to be the most successful. And when we say slow speeders, it was really that term that grabbed people's attention. And if it's okay, I'll just read this briefly and then we'll jump right into the creative. So one of the deadliest kinds of speeding doesn't look like speeding at all. There's an argument to be made that the most dangerous kind of speeding is going 40 miles per hour on a suburban street, not blazing down a rural highway at 85 miles per hour. The majority of fatal crashes don't happen on highways. They happen in suburban neighborhoods or on city streets. A vehicle traveling at 40 miles per hour is 60% more likely to cause injury or fatality to a pedestrian than one just going 20 miles per hour. The most dangerous speeder is you, it's me, it's all of us driving to where we need to be, just a little over the speed limit. So this idea was built on that very simple insight about speeding that people really didn't understand, and that one of the deadliest kinds of speeding happens really on our busy suburban streets and doesn't really look like speeding at all. So our communication objectives and then the audience, primarily it was increasing awareness of Vision Zero and beginning some behavior change, and then educating the public. Our target audience, obviously drivers, and then our secondary audience were Hispanic drivers with a low SES. And right now I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to Gordy so that he can walk us through the creative.
Thanks, Linda. If you guys can hear me okay.
Yes.
One of the things that really has been a plus for me with my experience with DRCOG and working with Steve years ago on developing the Way to Go campaign is some what we call in advertising those sticky expressions. And with Way to Go, it was stop being an SOV. And with Vision Zero, it's slow speeding. And both of those situations are something that every sort of Denver driver or driver in general can relate to. Everybody's driven a car by themselves and everybody has ventured a few miles over the speed limit when it doesn't really feel that impactful. And the benefit of all this is all these are easily fixable by the operator of the vehicle themselves. So that was one of our main connecting points, to really educate people on this new slow speeding term and what it meant, and really solidifying all the marketing to come away with the deadliest kind of speeding doesn't look like speeding at all. So when we jumped into creative, we wanted to use the brand fonts and brand colors for DRCOG and Vision Zero. Something that was simple and obviously not a lot of words, being that it's a billboard. We did billboards, we did bus backs, and I know Linda will get into the media spend and where the money went. And but this is one of the examples of the simple billboards of the deadliest speeds don't feel like speeding at all. We came up with the URL slowspeedingkills.com, which led people to a quick site with more facts and information, and the ability to sign up on the pledge. Couple more billboards. Life ends faster after 40 miles per hour. I'm not going to entertain you guys with my Spanish, but 8 out of 10 speeding deaths happen on roads like this one. And this obviously is for placement, as you can see. And then next we went out and actually took some of the things that people are very familiar with when driving. One of these is the little kid sign that most people are familiar with, it saying, drive like your kids live here. So we changed the message to put it on the campaign, drive slower, they'll live longer. And then again, it has the URL as well. And lastly, in addition to some social media, we also had this super fun idea of changing your speed is good to your speed can kill. If you go, I think it was 41 or 42. And this was placed in Louisville, and was, you know, again, another way to extend the campaign out into an experiential method that drivers could actually interact with and see slow speeding in the flesh.
And can we thank Madam Chair and Mayor Stolzman? We really appreciated your stepping up to get this up.
Thank you.
And then lastly, this is just the homepage above the fold that we created for the slowspeedingkills.com. And Linda, I'm gonna let you speak to this.
Gordy should really be speaking to it. So we were thrilled because we did submit this to the 50, which is part of the Denver Ad Club's annual award show. And we're happy to say that DRCOG won one of the judges' selections, which means it was really in the top 5 out of the 50 that they selected. And Steve and his team were able to take the press release and push it out via social, but just thrilled that it was recognized the way it was. Anything to add to that, Gordy?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about media strategy and the plan. Our media partner, Techent, helped drive the media strategy, and there were a couple of different components. One was the earned media, and that was done with our PR person, and then working very closely with Charmaine at DRCOG. And that was the earned media, and we've got a couple little spots to play on that if we have time. And then the second was the paid media, and the paid media was comprised of what Gordy just mentioned. We did bus backs, billboards, the experiential that you just saw, and then we did some streaming audio, and then a very heavy push into social. This is the geographic area that we were targeting through the media. The media ran August through October of 21, and the media spend was about $117,000. On the bus tails, here's just some of those examples that Gordy showed before. They were able to run for about 4 weeks throughout the Denver metro area. And then billboards were able to run throughout the Denver metro area as well. And you can kind of see here what those billboards look like as we were able to take some shots from the roads themselves. Streaming audio, I'll go ahead and just play this real quick. It's only 30 seconds, but we purchased streaming on Spotify and ran a 30-second spot.
I'm guilty.
Guilty.
I'm guilty.
I was doing 28 and a 20.
I drove 39 in the 30.
27 and a 20. I slammed on the brake.
She came out of nowhere.
My heart was beating out of my chest.
Turns out I'm a slow speeder. I mean, we all do it, right?
Barely over, but so close to a tragedy. The most dangerous speeding doesn't look like speeding. In fact, 87% of speeding deaths happen off highways. Visit slowspeedingkills.com today.
And of course, this was targeting drivers who listen to Spotify in their car. I will tell you, there was an opportunity to do a banner on Spotify, but we didn't do that because that's not safe driving habits. Social media was a big push, and Spanish language and English. And we were targeting here adults 18 to 34, lower to mid-scale household income. And you can see some of the stats here. Our total impressions were well over 2 million with an added value of 116,000 plus. The social media ran a little bit longer than we were able to do with the bus boards and things like that. We ran that from August 23rd to October 31st, and it was heavily on the awareness end of it, even though we were trying to drive people to slowspeedingkills.com. As a recap, total impressions delivered 33 million, and we saw 1,100 landing page visits. Again, this was heavily an awareness campaign, trying to educate and begin to change that behavior. On public relations, the general strategy was really focused on driving the experiential, which you saw the kid signs and the radar sign, and then the media outreach targeting through the larger outlets. And Charmaine, who is on the DRCOG team, helped with this along with our PR person. And then we leaned heavily on organic social and the relationships that DRCOG members have. And you can see Louisville and Arapahoe County there as just a couple of the cities. This we've already covered. And then I did want to play this if we can, and because it was great earned media from Kyle Clark with 9 News.
Did I tell you I bought our car from Carvana?
Yeah, sorry.
It was so easy. I found the perfect car, under budget too. And I get 7 days to love it or my money back. I love it. I thought online meant no one to help me, but Susan from Carvana had all the answers. She didn't try to upsell me, not once, because they're not salespeople. Where do you guess who just checked in on me? Susan from Carvana.
We'll drive you happy at Carvana.
It's a sign people in Louisville are sick of speeders. The city's transportation department has measured the short and long-term impact of these slowdown signs, like the new one on South Boulder Road. This is pretty blunt. Your speed can kill. The mayor told us the danger in this spot is often people just going a bit over the limit.
And in that area, people do tend to, because there is a hill and you know, people get comfortable. So they start to go 45. I think sometimes what people think is, oh, I'm just going 5 over. You know, that's not a problem. But 5 over can put you up to a speed where you can actually take someone else's life.
Mayor Ashley Stolzman says the city's transportation department found that the largest speed reduction happens right after those flashing signs go in, but they have seen a smaller reduction that lasts in the long term.
Let's go ahead and stop that. I apologize for those commercials. I thought I had that teed up properly. And that is pretty much our presentation. I think we did okay at 15 minutes. I hope we did. And Mayor Stolzman, thank you again for your help in getting that speed sign up.
Thank you for helping us with Vision Zero. This is really important to the board, and it's great. It's great to see it come into action and make a difference in helping save people's lives. Are there any questions from board members? All right, seeing none, that takes us to our committee reports tonight. And so we'll start with the State Transportation Advisory Committee, Director Maurer.
Thank you, Chair, and hopefully I can read this without my internet not getting interrupted. And if I do get interrupted, I did phone a friend and Doug Rex will fill in for me. So STAC met last Friday, February 11th, and CDOT made a presentation, Transportation Funding 101. And it was an overview of how the state and federal transportation funding works. And I found it very helpful with not only learning the acronyms, but what and how each funding source is allocated. And I'll add that link into the chat, or if Melinda has access, she can send it out as well. And then CDOT gave an update on the 10-year plan development with anticipated planning revenues and fiscal constraints. And then Michael King from CDOT also provided an overview of state and federal electric vehicle program they have, as well as grant opportunities. And if you're interested in learning more, right now they don't have it on the website, the STAC packet for February, because that's where it is. But you can either contact me or also I'll give that information to Melinda. And that's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Maurer. Next, we have a report from the Metro Mayor's Caucus. Director Starker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The full caucus met on February 2nd in a virtual meeting. We had a good legislative update with CML, with Megan Dollar and Megan McKillop, going through some of the legislation that's coming through the State House. We had a report from our nominating committee and announced officers for the coming year. We had a review of our activities over the last year, and we looked at the committee achievements and assignments for the coming year. And then we talked about our principles, had a discussion on our principles and the priorities for the 2022 calendar. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Starker. That takes us to a report from the Metro Area County Commissioners. Director Baker.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Greetings from Washington, D.C. I'm flying back tomorrow. Matt will meet on March 4th, 2022 at DRCOG. Thank you to Executive Director Doug Rex for allowing us to do that. In the meantime, we have a survey going out from Dimension Strategies to prepare for that meeting on the 4th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Baker. That takes us to Director Sanchez Warren with a report from the Advisory Committee on Aging.
Thank you so much. We had Jared Hughes, who is the Senior Policy Advisor for the Governor, come and talk with us about the modernization of the older Coloradoans Act. This is a really important bill, the most important bill for area agencies on aging in Colorado. The good news is they didn't change a lot of regulations affecting area agencies on aging, but added to the support of aging in the state of Colorado. It modifies the structure of the Colorado Commission on Aging, giving more, I think, authority and autonomy, which is good. Establishes a technical advisory committee to really help us implement some of the really good ideas that have come out of the Colorado Commission on Aging, as well as the Strategic Planning Group on Aging. And then puts into statute the Lifelong Colorado, which is an initiative to prepare Colorado for the aging of its population. Remember, Colorado is the second fastest aging state in the nation. And we have a whole lot of older adults coming down the pike, and we really need to think about how to best serve those folks and help them, it's us guys, live and age as well as we can in the future. So we were really privileged to have him there. I want to also take time to say thank you so much to you, Chair Ashley Stolzman, for your support of the Area Agency on Aging. You, I don't know if you'll remember this, but we were in High Noon and a lot of my staff was in High Noon, and you took the opportunity to talk with them, acknowledge their work. That was so valuable to them. They didn't even know you knew they existed, and you were able to reference some of the work that they were doing specifically by program, and they were so touched by that. I want to thank you for your leadership and your support.
Thank you, Director Sanchez Warren. And that takes us to a report from the Regional Air Quality Council, Director X.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met on Friday, February 4th, and there was a couple of agenda items of notes. We had a presentation from staff on the ozone SIP emissions inventories. We're preparing for the next SIP call, and this was kind of a 101 just to get us going in the right direction. Legislative update too. The RAC doesn't typically take positions on bills, but it decided to take one on House Bill 1026 to support the bill, and just to remind everybody that that was the alternative transportation options tax credit, and it was a bill we took a position of support with amendments at the last meeting. Madam Chair, that's it.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from E470 Authority from Director Mulvey.
Hi, yes, E470 has an executive director who is retiring after about 6 years on the board and 38 years of service in the transportation industry. So Tim Sullivan will be leaving at the end of March, and a new executive director was selected. His name is Bo Memory, and he will be, as I mentioned, coming in at the end of March. The board also approved a amendment to the TSA, the Toll Services Agreement for HDPE, and then a roadway maintenance agreement through a CMGC process. They also received, the board also received a Q4 report for finance and operations. The meeting was, I forgot to mention, last Thursday. Next meeting is next month.
Thank you, Director Mulvey. Next, we have a report from CDOT, Director White.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Chair. Just a couple quick notes tonight. Happy to announce that Jessica Mickelbust has been selected as the new Regional Transportation Director for CDOT's Region 1, which encompasses much of the DRCOG region. I think that's probably a familiar name to many folks, as she's been with CDOT for a few years now and has been in various roles within the region, but I look forward to introducing her to the board, and I'm sure y'all have a chance to interact with her in the coming years. The other quick note I'll make is we announced on February 11th the recipients of a small grant program, very much in keeping with a lot of the discussion tonight, but they're Transportation Demand Management Grants, or TDM. We had about $492,000 made available, and I'll just highlight one of the grants that was given to a community within the DRCOG region, to the city of Castle Pines. Received a $47,000 grant to evaluate outreach and plan to identify strategies to connect Castle Pines commuters to existing RTD services, and specifically park and rides and transit hubs. So glad to see that award. There was also one for commuting solutions and a expansion of the Colorado car share program to Louisville and Lafayette. So with that, I think that's all I have for tonight. Please, everyone, drive safe tomorrow if you're heading out, given the snow we have in the region. Thanks.
Thank you, Director White. Next, we have a report on fast tracks from Director Van Meter.
Chair, nothing additional to report.
I thought that might be the case, but I just wanted to give you the chance. Thank you very much. And that next in our packet are our informational items. And so you'll find in attachment N and attachment O, two really useful briefings to look through. There's the Transportation Improvement Program Administrative Modifications, and there's the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. And so you'll want to look through those. We'll continue to talk about those types of things throughout the year. And if you have questions on those informational briefings, please do contact the staff members listed on those briefings. Our next meeting is March 16th, and that takes us to other matters by members. Director Flynn.
Thank you, Chair. Before we adjourn, I would like the board of DRCOG and in our minutes to make note of the passing this week of one of the giant pillars of our community, and that is Joe Blake. I know most of us have probably seen the news that Joe passed away yesterday, pancreatic of 86. Those of us who have known him know what a remarkable gentleman he was, a genuinely nice and kind human being. Conversation with Joe that didn't make me feel like I was the most important thing in his mind at that moment. A native of Denver, East High School, Dartmouth, unfortunately had to go back east, but then he came back to see you, and FBI agent, US Senate aide in the 1960s. For most of his career he was with Mission Viejo as they developed the Highlands Ranch in the 80s. And then went on to lead the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce for, I believe, about 10 years. Before then, becoming the very first chancellor of the Colorado State University system, really reviving and pulling together all the different campuses under his chancellorship. It was my honor to know him. And I just want to make sure that the board in our minutes make note of his passing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Flynn, and we will make sure that's in the minutes. That's fantastic. Are there any other members that would like to make comments? Thank you, Rich. Rich has added some in the chat. Any other matters by members this evening? And Executive Director X, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can all look forward to October 1st when we can return the favor to you on the birthday wishes. Is that right? We'll all mark it down in our calendars. October 1st. That'll be the day.
October, you can, but it's not October 1st, September 20th.
September 20th. All right. I remember.
I don't know how that's not already on everybody's calendar.
We'll mark it down. We'll remember the favor and we'll mark down September 20th for you. Very good. Thank you very much, Executive Director Rex. Any other matters by members? Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe.